Hey folks, Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, ancestrylands.com. Folks, it's a beautiful day today. Not one just for the weather, but also we're driving on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Many of you might have heard of the New Jersey Turnpike, but the Pennsylvania Turnpike also, or Pennsylvania also has a turnpike, and the speed limit is around 70 miles per hour. You see it coming up on the right here. You'll see it says 70 miles per hour. I think in New Jersey, the speed limit is 65. But any which way, folks, I wanted to come and talk to you all. I got about 16 miles until I get off my exit here. Ride with me, right? I try to always bring you some thoughts, things that are on my mind, things that are educational, enlightening, and sometimes entertaining. I hope to always entertain you as you listen to this, my thoughts, transformative thoughts. I come to you today, folks, and talk to you about, what do you discuss with your children, all right? I've got 2 children of age 9 and 7. I have 3 children in total, but with a 16-month-old, it's not, the conversations are very basic, and it's more we're doing speaking. But with my 9 and 7-year-old, which you'll see do work for me, they are employed in my business. They are the generational and inheritors of Ancestry Lands and AncestryLands.com and all the other social media sites that we have associated with Ancestry Lands. When I go and talk to my children, outside of, what's going on in school, education, building wealth, generational wealth, doesn't start with just handing down properties, business, money, or other tangible assets to the next generation. One of the biggest things that you notice about people such as like maybe the Vanderbilts, families that have squandered wealth, I think what Anderson Cooper is in that line of Vanderbilts where I think his mother or something like that, squandered or something. I don't want to be slanderous, but I'm just saying that their wealth has been lost within generations. And again, I look at wealth as being any amount of value passed that gives the next generation a head start. Because sometimes, wealth is it's an idealistic concept that generally has a floor starting at a number that no one can say. But wealth in its truest form is just basically things of value handed down, at least my definition of it, is going to be tangible values that are passed down that help propel the next generation ahead, so that way they don't start at zero. All right, I'm going to try to illustrate that a little bit better, or say that a little bit better. But basically what I'm just trying to say in small is that, everyone thinks of wealth as this line of you only have to have $1 million. For many of us, maybe even including myself, we don't have to have $1 million in order to pass down wealth. Wealth, a lot of times, can also be thought of like a house, money. It can be many things, but where I decide, or I'm defining wealth at, is passing down economic advantages that give you a head start or a stagger. If anyone relates this to running track or athletes, where you get to your starting point is further ahead than it would be if you were if you did not have it. All right. For people who are in lower socioeconomic status, everyone's starting at zero. Well, wealth being passed down generationally gives you a head start, or a few feet ahead of someone else. That could be wealth by upbringing, you living in a wealth-rich, resourceful environment where you have access to not social programs, but area or programs educationally that expand outside of academia, the normal format, the common core programming or educational system, like the things like camps, tutoring, private violin music lessons, Chamber of Commerce, things like that. You have access to resources in a resource-rich area instead of a resource-depleted area where counties are running deficits. I live in a county myself where they have millions of dollars of surplus in their budget because the county is a very expensive county. Actually, I live in the most expensive county in Pennsylvania, and that's not to brag. That's just me understanding that I'm in a resource-rich environment. So when you're in an area like that, the wealth of resources that have been passed down and accumulated in the form of strong academic performance, schools that are competitive on an academic national level. You live around families that are business owners, that are doctors, lawyers, people of affluent society. These are the areas where your kids will associate, connect, and build peer groups with. So when I'm doing such things as myself, like doing the land business, being an author, writing a book, social media presence, and leaving a digital footprint, my kids have that association of affluency through their peers and their own home environment. So one of the mistakes that many people make is that they raise these kids, or our children, or your children, in areas of affluency, but they do not teach the mindset, the generational mindset, to sustain and scale wealth. You know, a lot of times we see billionaires being created within our generation, but we may not see those generations stand the test of time as the generations go forward. Because again, you might be a billionaire, millionaire, or even a couple 100,000. But do you train your children to have a mindset geared towards wealth sustaining and scaling that wealth up from where they started at? Because a lot of times you see generationally people who, you know, were billionaires or millionaires worth money, and in a few generations they have squandered that wealth. And why is that? Well, you know, in my opinion, that is because the mindset, the wealth mindset, is not taught to the children. They are benefiting from the inheritance of wealth, the wealth resources, because again, affluent people have children in affluent environments. So, and the children are raised where we might call that privilege now. But again, the mindset to sustain privilege, not to be privileged, is what is missing from the people that we call have, you know, privilege. You know, if you pretty privilege, whether you're, you know, height, whatever else, money, well, you know, you have millions, you have the power of influence, whatever it is, the mindset has to be trained to the next generation to understand how to maintain or sustain it at the minimum. Because each generation's objective should be to accumulate as much wealth as humanly possible and pass that wealth down. And the minimum goal is, once wealth is inherited, you should be minimally able to sustain that wealth and increase it in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, some of the strategies you can use are things like life insurance. You know, there's many ways to do that. Where I started with land, that could evolve into life insurance for the next generation, where the policies are passed down. You know, you think about something like life insurance, where you can create generational wealth. And again, but it shouldn't be a one generation wealth creation. You know, the goal is to pass wealth down, and it should skip a generation. You know, wealth should be passed down, where it's not passed down directly to your children, it's passed down to your grandchildren, and then my children will pass the wealth down to their grandchildren. So that way, if you keep doing that over time, the wealth is compounded, because it doesn't need to be utilized by the next generation. They should be on building or sustaining that initial level of wealth, and then that should be ready to, that's where the sustaining part comes in, right? Because if I pass down wealth to my grandchildren, my children's children, then my children should be able to accumulate and build upon their own level of wealth and then pass that on. So they should be able to sustain what I'm passing down to my grandchildren for them to inherit without utilizing that. That's the sustain part. And they should be able to scale, meaning that what they contribute should be passed down again to the next grandchildren, because my grandchildren who are now parents would have already inherited the wealth that I have accumulated for them. So I'm already giving them a standard of wealth that, let's say it's $1 million or $2 million. And again, I know that the people are going to say $1 million is not what it used to be. It won't be that way by the time you have grandchildren. Yes, you're right. But it will be more money than I started off with. Again, just listen to how I'm flowing that. And the reason why I say is that one generation sustains and another generation scales the wealth. All right? Meaning that I build up Ancestry Lands, get these properties, a business that should be sustained by my children. And they may not be, the next. I have a Philip. My son's name is Philip. He's the third, but he may not be the Philip Davis that I am. But let's say he's a big, he gets life insurance policies that are, I guess, $2 million for, whatever the $2 million equatable value is for that time period. And he has IULs and policies that he is going to leave for his grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, which I'm building my wealth to leave my life insurance policies to be passed down in the form of IUL starting for my grandchildren. So when my grandchildren come of age and they start off in life, they should be inheriting what is essentially my wealth that I'm passing down. Now, their job is to sustain that.
In 2 miles, use the right 2 lanes to take exit 343 for Pennsylvania 611 South toward Willow Grove.
They should be able to sustain.
There's a speed trap ahead.
All right, so they're already out trying to get me. 12 out here. They should be able to sustain and scale what their starting point, because they're starting ahead of most people. If I had to start them next to me in life, they would be already starting ahead, which means they should be able to have home, multifamily investment. They won't need to do it in their 40s like I'm doing. They should already be able to jump ahead to where it took me 40 years to accumulate. They're starting off in their 20s, building that wealth. All right. Now, my children should be on the same path, because, again, it's some generations got to start it. Because everybody wants to live and become millionaires, but generally billionaires were descendants of millionaires that, if it's a generational capacity. Because one thing we see is that we don't hear about a lot of generational wealth being created. We hear a lot of talk about it, but we don't hear a lot of seeing people who come from that. We know, rich families exist, but we don't know about the formula on how wealth is generated.
In half a mile, use the right 2 lanes to take exit 343 for Pennsylvania 611 South toward Willow Grove.
So because I am trying to be the progenitor of the generational wealth, and this is the formula for anyone else, I don't care what business you're doing, what if you follow this model, you
use the right 2 lanes to take exit 343.
You should be able to generate a starting point for generational wealth.
Continue for half a mile.
So you get the IUL, you get the real estate investments, you get these things that can be inheritable that create income producing opportunities or residual income, books, writing books like I've done, owning land, being able to put these lands on contracts, and then that gets passed down to my children to sustain what I've already done, and to grow it to become more. You add
in a quarter mile, keep left at the fork. Follow signs for Pennsylvania 611 South, Willow Grove.
You add in life insurance policies, right? You add in business investments, stocks, things of that sort to add on, and you pass down those tax-free wealth generators to give the next generation.
Keep left at the fork.
I said keep left at the fork, sorry. Left. You pass down.
In a quarter mile, merge onto Pennsylvania 611 South Easton Road.
Sorry to break that up there. You pass down these head starts. So when I pass down a life insurance policy to my children, a portion of that should be taken already to fund the life insurance policies like IULs, things like that, for the grandchildren. That's immediately what they
merge
should
onto
be doing.
Pennsylvania 611 South Easton Road, then turn right onto Maryland Road.
They should automatically be infusing a life insurance policy.
At the light, turn right onto Maryland Road.
Or it's fully funded with my grandchildren, which means that my grandchildren...
In a quarter mile, turn right onto Commerce Avenue.
My grandchildren do not need to have the slow head start that I don't have. Now imagine this, if you do this and your grandchildren start off with $100,000 in an IUL that's already accumulating at the age of 20. They go 40 years plus. You're talking about the cash values.
Turn right onto Commerce Avenue, then turn left.
Now you're talking about they have inheritable businesses, third generation business, second generation businesses now. You're talking about wealth starting to accumulate faster and faster and faster. I mean, just think about that.
Take the next left, then your destination will be on the right.
You can start seeing how this accumulates so fast. Go ahead. You can start seeing how this accumulates so fast that you're looking at wealth exponentially generating over the course of time. And just a few generations.
Your destination is on the right.
You're looking at $1 billion farm. And that's how wealth is truly generated on a generational level. And again, each generation, I mean, this lady, like, seriously, you can't just move up. Like for real. Wealth is just generated on a high level. And this is what people's education is missing from the households. Households are missing this education spoken to the children. When I talk to my children, we talk about things like interest, taxes. What are taxes? What conversations are you having with your children outside of school? Because school's not going to teach them that. We already know that. We're already aware that we cannot rely on school to give your children 401k educations. And I'm sure by the time I had grandchildren, 401ks would have changed, because the word is out about 401ks, what they were designed for. They were savings plans. They were not retirement plans. So again, how do you get your children to scale up and again have wealth? Because again, you got to think about it. A lot of us, our regular folks, we do take care of our parents in our older ages. And everything's becoming so much more expensive. How do you preserve something for your back end of life? You don't. And that's the reason why you need these wealth accumulators. But again, when you have the progenitors building wealth, all the people out there now that are going to be building wealth, you got to have conversations with your children to educate them. And it starts as soon as they're able to. You don't need to start when they're in high school and college. My children have, that's why they're hired into my business. I've hired my children into my business because they need to understand about going to work, getting money, how to make purchases, how to understand when you spent too much, or you need to save. My daughter's an oversaver. The only problem is she has to learn how that she can't take it with her because she's not learning to grow money. My son inadvertently is a spender. So, but now we have the training model to be able to understand their financial habits and model that behavior and make improvements as they get older. Now you do that because you're able to analyze that as where they are as children and get them to understand through practice and repetition, making financial purchases and looking at balancing their own money. Now you might look at a checkbook. We have ledgers where we do with our kids, where they have to go to their bank and register how much money they put into their bank, because that's the digital component. How you doing? And also they have to actually write it out and make sure they're doing their own accounting in an actual ledger. So their bank needs to reflect what they have recorded, because they're going to track their expenses. They're going to track what they spend. And they do that by looking at this ledger, because the ledger's not there for when they're making money or they're getting paid. It's there for them to track how their spending habits are. So now they have a way to look back and reflect on their spending habits, what they spent money on, what they have now as far as toys are concerned or items that they purchase. So they can actually see, were those things worthy purchases? So when you start doing that, you can now move into credit cards, because remember, I have videos talking about credit cards. They're going to get those credit cards soon. My daughter's 9, going to be 10. In 8 years, she will be getting credit card offers, and she will now have access, based upon that initial credit score, to high interest spending, access to spending power. And if she's not careful and doesn't understand that, but how does she form those habits? And that's the thing that you got to talk to your children about, forming those habits. But it happens when they're young and you sit down and have these conversations with them. And you need to start training them and getting them involved in the world of understanding. And Netflix has tons, and I'm not promoting Netflix, but there are tons of videos, kid videos, where they can understand how taxes are done. They look at how much money I made in a year, but they don't understand that I'm also taxed. What's gross versus net? You got to sit down and have these simple conversations with them and show them how, hey, you made this much money, but if the government were to tax you $50, you made $50 this month, which is what I pay my kids. But if the government were to tax you, you would get paid $40, because those taxes have to go up. So you can use those models to show them and understand how they can understand what taxes really are and how they're taxed. It's a very simple thing to do on small levels. So I say to you folks, start to create generational wealth, but create a generational mindset that can go along and handle that. Because we see a lot of these kids, they squander wealth. Wealth is so much, it's squandered, but you got to understand and ask them, did they just provide the model? Did they just provide the affluent education in the form of schooling, having a nice big house, but they didn't spend any mind building the generational mindset for wealth building? And if you don't do that, folks, you're pretty much just putting your money into a hole and starting a fire and seeing it burn. It's either going to burn fast or slow. So that's my quick thoughts for today, folks. Talk to your children, talk about wealth building concepts, and start training their mind generationally, brick by brick, on a house full of knowledge, so that way when you leave wealth, they have the mindset to sustain, don't lose it, and then they can scale. And now they have a mind that has a base foundation, like a house with a good strong foundation, to now build. Each story is a new generation that inherits that mindset of generational building and knowledge. And you do that by involving your children in those conversations, folks. Don't forget my book, Getting Dollars from Dirt, a beginner's guide to vacant land investing, is on Amazon by Philip Davis. Get your copy on Amazon, folks. My name is Philip Davis. I hope you've been educated and enlightened and somewhat entertained, folks. Give this video a like, share it, subscribe. Take care. I'm out. Peace.
Have you ever wondered how some people make a fortune by investing in vacant land? Well, look no further. We have the ultimate solution for you. Introducing Getting Dollars from Dirt, a beginner's guide to vacant land investing. This incredible book is your go-to resource if you're looking to make a splash in the real estate market. You'll discover proven strategies and expert tips to help you navigate the world of vacant land investing, even if you're a complete beginner. Say goodbye to confusing jargon and overwhelming information. This book is designed to provide you with practical steps to kickstart your journey towards financial independence. Learn how to identify the most profitable vacant land opportunities and maximize your returns. Getting Dollars from Dirt covers it all. You'll gain the confidence and knowledge you need to make smart investment decisions. Don't miss out on this golden opportunity. Grab your copy of Getting Dollars from Dirt today and start your path to wealth. Click the link in the description below to order your copy now. Remember, investing in vacant land has never been this accessible. Don't wait another second. Start building your fortune today.